I welcome you all for this Childhood debate series. Childhood is a co-working space and a hub for exchange of ideas on social, political, and economic issues. Right now, with this episode of debate series, we have a topic which is मुझे बहुत ज़्यादा हमें नज़र आता है हिस्ट्री क्लासरूम्स में पॉलिटिकल साइंस के क्लासरूम्स में उसके ऊपर आज भी बहसें होती हैं सोशल मीडिया के ऊपर ख़ास तौर पे कि इंडियन सब कॉन्टिनेंट जो है उसको उसकी पार्टीशन होनी चाहिए थी नहीं होनी चाहिए थी अगर होनी चाहिए थी तो क्या यही सबसे डिज़ायर्ड फॉर्म है उसकी पार्टीशन होने के हवाले से क्योंकि इंडियन पार्टीशन अगर हम देखें तो साउथ एशिया की हिस्ट्री में दैट्स लाइक one of the key events that happened in the 20th century. उसकी जो सोशल इकोनॉमिक रिपरकशंस थी वो तो सबके सामने है लेकिन जो ह्यूमन लॉस हुआ सब कॉन्टिनेंट की पार्टीशन के दौरान जो फैमिलीज माइग्रेट की ख़ास तौर पे पंजाब के अंदर पंजाब की जो पार्टीशन हुई बंगाल की जो पार्टीशन हुई तो इससे मेरे ख्याल में एक बड़े सवालात जन्म देते हैं इससे काफ़ी इसमें बहुत ज़्यादा ख़ास तौर पे अगस्त के महीने में इन पाकिस्तान एज वेल एज इन इंडिया बहुत ज़्यादा डिबेट्स भी होती हैं कि जो इंडियन पार्टीशन को अगर इंडिया को अगर इंडिया की पार्टीशन होनी थी तो क्या ये उसकी सबसे अच्छी फॉर्म थी या नहीं थी इसमें कुछ चेंजेस हो सकती थी क्या इतने बड़े लॉस को से बचा जा सकता था मतलब मिलियंस ऑफ पीपल डाइड हंड्रेड्स ऑफ थाउजेंड्स डिस्प्लेस्ड माइग्रेशन के अंदर ख़वातीन की कहानियाँ इसके ऊपर लिटरेचर हमारे सामने है मंटो का लिटरेचर और बहुत से लोगों का जो लिटरेचर है पार्टीशन के साथ जुड़ी हुई जो एक क्राइसिस था उसकी जो सोशल कॉस्ट थी उसकी जो इकोनॉमिक कॉस्ट थी क्या उससे बचा जा सकता था या नहीं so this is basically the motion the partition of the Indian subcontinent was inevitable and in this debate series what happens is that one of the speakers speaks for the motion and the other one speaks against it. So for this motion I have with me Ms. Seher Rashmeen if I'm pronouncing her name correctly. She is she studied strategic and nuclear studies and she conducts research. She is a freelance researcher who is conducting researches on security, nuclear studies with respect to India and Pakistan के जो ताल्लुकात हैं. I have the second speaker, Mr. Afra Siab Khan, who is an anthropologist who's done MPhil in anthropology. He teaches gender studies at a public youth sector university and he has interest in South Asian history. So I welcome you both. Thank you so much for showing up. So the format, I'll just quickly go through the format of this discussion. So there will be two rounds basically. The first round will consist of 5 to 7 minutes. Each speaker will speak, present their arguments either against the motion or for the motion. और उसके बाद जो 5 से 7 मिनट होंगे पहले राउंड के लिए दूसरे राउंड के लिए 3 से 5 मिनट्स होंगे सो एवरी स्पीकर द स्पीकर अगेंस्ट द मोशन will raise questions on for the other speaker and vice versa और उसके बाद हम conclude करेंगे on question and answer session. So I have with me Afra Siab. Thank you so much. I'll request Seher to please come over the stage and so I'll first Seher will be speaking for the motion which is the partition of Indian subcontinent was inevitable. Thank you.
Sir, you speak. Hello everyone, I'm Seher Rashmeen, like to meet you. थोड़ा ऊंचा बोलो. Okay. So I'll be speaking for the notion why India and Pakistan's partition was inevitable. Uh, like I won't be first, right away getting into the textbook chapter that we all have been studying for the in our school ages. The first thing that we need to understand about India and Pakistan and basically the entire subcontinent is what are the patterns that we have been following historically. So I won't be going into too much detail, but let's start with, for example, let's just take the example of Ashoka. When he came into power, he tried to reunite the region. He tried to perform the process of reunification of the region, and it was there for a while until it started disintegrating. Right after that, let's go to the Mughal Empire. There was a time when the emperors were trying to again start a process of reunification, get the region together, get all the different ethnicities and the people from different religious backgrounds and linguistic backgrounds together under one regime, under one empire. That again did not work out, as we know. After Aurangzeb died, things started falling apart, and there was again a form of a disintegration between Muslims, specifically Muslims and Hindus. We go further when the Britishers came into power. So why is this a little bit important? Why? Because when Britishers came into power, they basically utilized this thing about Muslims and Hindus, that they had the tendency to go against, each other. They had that tendency in them. There was always a different, a form of a class difference, a form of a thing that used to, keep a huge difference in them, and that would actually encourage these communities to go against each other, be it Hindus against Muslims, and be it even to the fact utilizing the Britishers at that time and keeping Muslims away from the gaining the type of education that the Hindus were gaining at that time. We go further and we touch the topic of 1971. So we were actually trying to follow, the subcontinent was following a pattern, reunification and again disintegration, reunification and again disintegration. Till the time when there was a moment where Qaid Azam actually said after the cabinet mission that okay, fine, we will be willing to live inside India if we are given some form of constitutional rights, like we are given, our provinces are given autonomous power. That was not that was not catered to. The fact that हिंदुत्व, the 1920 से जो एक हिंदुत्व की जो एक वो एक एलिमेंट था, जो उनकी एक वो सोच थी, that has impacted how Hindus treated Muslims when there was no Pakistan in India. That was such a pressing factor of why this was bound to happen, with or without the British, coming forward and initiating it. And one more thing that we need to keep in mind is that other than this historical factor, there were a lot of policies, specifically of the Congress, which we all have studied in depth. The Congress always had their policies which were okay, maybe they were not anti-Muslim, maybe, but they were pro-Hindu. There was always a mouthpiece to represent Muslims, even right now in their government. But we know where the BJP stands right now in terms of where the Muslims are, in terms of where the other minorities of Indians are. We should never forget what they do. The importance of Dalits over there. We know what happens to Christians over there. I'm like talking in a very generic sense right now. All these things happen in this part of the subcontinent as well. But speaking in that way, like the Hindutva had such a great grasp on the policies that were going to be designed in India later on, even in this age and time, as we can see. This type of a separatist movement, the Muslims, they were bound to want a separate nation to be away from such times of tyranny and times of oppression. This was bound to happen. And why am I saying bound to happen? Because even right now, as many, there are as many as 13 to 20 separatist movements going on in India. The I think there is the Nagaland, the Khalistan movement. There are so many movements that are going on. These movements are actually following the pattern that was started after the War of Independence. After the War of Independence was there, and we saw the pattern of India breaking apart again, one more time, like it was under a lot of regimes before that. So, you know, the separatist, this notion, this disintegration factor, this is still seen in India. It has not stopped yet. It is still going towards that. There are still so many factors that contribute, that there are minorities, there are entities inside India, even Pakistan, that are still not happy where they are standing in the country. The process has not stopped. Third thing that we should take into account is the great power, the international system at that time during the partition. Let's take the example of, let's say, Europe. After the war, First World War and Second World War, where do we see the states? The people who are speaking French, they have France. The people who are speaking German, who are German speaking, they have Germany. People who are English speaking, they have England. And all these countries have finally formed natural borders. Natural borders are basically borders that are formed for people, like they are, like after the wars, these natural borders are formed to cater to people who needed independence in terms of their religious background, their linguistic background, their cultural background. So India was basically an unnatural phenomena, that we were so many ethnicities trying to live together in such a huge state, while the rest of the country, the international system, was basically following a pattern of disintegration to cater to the demands of the people that wanted to have a separate life from people who were not from their same ethnicity. Britain, Europe basically, and like just a recent example, even though it does not cater to the same aspect, when we see Brexit, why do I always put forward Brexit when I'm discussing this topic with other people? That's because in Brexit they were actually fearful of their own presence in their economy in the international system. So eventually, the Brexit happened. They went out of the system. Why? Because this form of disintegration, this is bound to happen with the passage of time. People will not cater to living in an environment where your ethnicity, where your language, where your culture is threatened. So the Muslims, they knew their future. They knew the Hindutva policy, the Hindutva thought process, the Hindutva agenda getting stronger with every decade, after every few years it was gaining more prominence. So it was bound to happen, if not then, maybe eventually later on, but it would have been more dangerous because the nations started having way too many arsenal and weapon power with them. It would have been way more dangerous if it had happened in the near past. So these are the aspects that I think support the notion that it was bound to happen, the India-Pakistan's partition.
Yani, that was very good. I feel very out of sorts after hearing that. खैर, I want to start with इब्न इंशा की एक बहुत मज़े की किताब है. It's called उर्दू की आखिरी किताब. टेक्स्ट बुक बोर्ड से गैर मंजूर शुदा. So उसमें जो है it's a parody of the textbooks that are written here. तो उसमें there's a section called मेरा वतन, right? और उसमें वो पूछते हैं कि ये कौन सा मुल्क है? जैसे कि पाकिस्तान है. पाकिस्तान में कौन रहते हैं? पाकिस्तान में पंजाबी रहते हैं, पाकिस्तान में सिंधी रहते हैं, पाकिस्तान में बंगाली रहते हैं. तो the other person answers कि बंगाली तो हिंदुस्तान में भी रहते हैं, सिंधी तो हिंदुस्तान में भी रहते हैं, पंजाबी तो हिंदुस्तान में भी रहते हैं. तो ये मुल्क क्यों बनाया? So the guy replies कि गलती हो गई, आइंदा नहीं करनी. Right? So this whole thing whether inevitable नागुज़ेर जो है, it's a very fascinating word because it hides a lot of things in it. So whether the fact that it was inevitable or not, this is a narrative, or historians what they do generally, they create narratives out of seemingly random facts. और कोई भी चीज़ अगर हो जाती है तो post hoc जो है, after the fact, it does appear inevitable कि हमें लगता है कि शायद ऐसा ही हुआ होगा. I'm sitting here right now. It appears it was inevitable. I could have cancelled in the morning, right? So nothing really is inevitable in a strictly historical or even in personal sense that I was talking about. So as she gave many very great examples, she talked about Ashok and the Mauryan Empire. She talked about the Mughals and stuff like this. So there's this narrative, right? And this narrative that she's presenting that India has gone through these phases of unification and then disintegration, right? So if that were true, wouldn't it ultimately Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh coalesce together in some time in the future as well? Right. So that's just a question that came in my mind. So as to coming back into the debate thing. So no, nothing really is inevitable, right? Or a couple of things are presented कि जी बहुत ज़्यादा differences होने लगी थी, बहुत मुश्किल होने लगा था गुजारा, etc., right? So first of all, we should be very clear that the British did not want to divide in India. ये Congress propaganda था कि divide and rule वो करना चाहते हैं, और यानी जिनाब को जो है लॉर्ड हॉवा कहता था, जो है अबुल कलाम आजाद जो है, लॉर्ड हॉवा was a sympathizer, Nazi sympathizer. So the British called it the crown jewel in the imperial throne. So they did not want it because बाद में जो है for strategic purposes one country is better than two, or as it happened, three. So first of all, we should be very clear about that. बाकी ये कि whether Hindus and Muslims could not coexist together, they had been coexisting for thousands of years prior to 1857. Like for example, there's lines in Mir Taqi Mir as well कि यानी दर में बैठे कश का खेंचा कब का तक इस्लाम किया, which he's talking कि यानी do not ask me about my religion, मैं कब का इस्लाम छोड़ चुका हूँ, stuff like that. So Mir Taqi Mir, right, Urdu poet, classical Urdu poet can say stuff like this. जो Amir Khusro's poetry, you find references कि Nizamuddin Auliya के लिए जो हैं you should wear orange because he saw some Hindu women wearing it. So there was a very intensely syncretic culture that existed in India. वारिस शाह की रांझा के स्टार्ट में गुरु नानक को सल्यूट किया जाता है right after the prophet and God, right? So ये culture exist करता था, and this distinction that happened was because of British historiography. The British created because to justify their presence, the British had to create this idea कि यहाँ पे communities हर वक्त लड़ रही हैं, यहाँ पे जो हैं communities इनका आपस में नहीं रहता, इनकी distinctly separate histories हैं, right? और एक जो the biggest thing the British did was the language thing, right? Now जिसको आप उर्दू कहते हैं या जिसको आप हिंदी कहते हैं, I'm not sure how many in this room can understand it, but I know how to read and write like Hindi and like the Sanskrit type stuff as well. So I know this for a fact कि Hindustani was a ज़ुबान थी that was in the north of India जो कि इस्तेमाल होती थी. Sanskritized Hindustani को आप हिंदी कहते हैं और Persianized Hindustani को आप उर्दू कहते हैं. They're the same languages, right? High, paid, and like common words, these are actually Hindi words. So the British created this artificial distinction in order to justify their colonial presence, right? And over time, the Muslims, since they lost power after 1857 in the north of India at least, they had to resort to creating for themselves, in accordance with what the British wanted. You should remember that the All India Muslim League, uska jo charter tha, usme jo pehla point tha was to make Muslims obedient and faithful citizens of the British Raj. So the Muslims created this category for themselves because they realized that we have to ally ourselves with this new power that has happened to it, right? A very fascinating book on all of these is called The Loss of Hindustan by Manan Ahmad. It was published this year, I believe. Goes into great detail into these cultural aspects, right? As to the political narrative, there was a threat of a Hindu Raj and stuff like this, right? So we should remember that the Pakistan की जो idea है या Pakistan का जो ये concept था, when it was first presented, so it was laughed at. Chaudhry Rahmat Ali जो है, people called it like a student's pipe dream. Very harsh words, but nevertheless, Allama Iqbal का जो है the Allahabad address जो है very famously present किया जाता है as evidence that maybe he wanted partition, right? But like the Allahabad address is available very freely online. उसमें कहते हैं कि these areas need to form one unit for the defense of India, not because Muslims are like we a separate entity हैं, but rather हिंदुस्तान के दिफा के लिए जो है ये ज़रूरी है. And he gave an interview the next day in which he laughed at the idea of Pakistan. Even in the Lahore Resolution, very famously known as the Pakistan Resolution of 1940, it is very vaguely worded. It is very यानी उसमें क्लैरिटी बिल्कुल नहीं है. जोन्स, यूनिट्स, प्रोविंसेस, एक ही सेंटेंस में जो है ये तमाम डिफरेंट चीज़ें जो है इस्तेमाल की गई हैं. एंड पाकिस्तान वाज केप्ट डिलिबरेटली वेग बाय जिन्ना बिकॉज इन बंगाल he argued कि ये लैंडलॉर्ड्स और ये जो हैं उनसे हमें छुटकारा मिलेगा. In the tribal areas where I'm from, he argued कि यहाँ पे शरीयत होगी. In Karachi, he did his famous 11th August, the secular speech of his, right? It was kept deliberately vague. And the reason for this is, and I'm not saying anything new, Aisha Jalal wrote a very fascinating book on it called The Sole Spokesman, in which she argues कि मसला हिंदुओं और मुसलमानों का नहीं था. मसला ये था कि in the provinces, the Muslims were in a sizable majority, while in the center, obviously because of the sheer numbers, the Hindus existed. And the problem was that Jinnah and the Muslim League wanted a federalized, a very loose sort of structure that would give more authority, more power to the provinces, while the Congress, and their argument was that a country like this cannot exist without some kind of centralized power. And this was the main distinction between them. And the Islam is in danger or Hindu Raj, and these things were deliberately kept. You should know that, like I said before, right, different things. Pakistan meant different things for different people. So if, and Jaswant Singh in his Partition of Pakistan, also a very fascinating book, very clearly mentions that it happened because of the Congress was not willing to work with the Muslim League, because दोनों साइड पे जो है वो ये था कि we are the actual representatives of whatever population that is we're claiming to be, right? The Congress claimed कि हम जो हैं पूरे हिंदुस्तान को जो है हम represent करते हैं. And एक और जो major mistake that was carried out by the Congress कि not separate the Indian nationalism that it was trying to create from the Hindu nationalism, जो कि आर्य समाज वाले and like she mentioned the राष्ट्रीय स्वयं सेवक संघ वाले जो हैं, the RSS and the Hindutva जो है, which was of course directly inspired by Hitler and all of these things from it, because the Congress's thing was independence first and we will sort these things out later. That was a very key sort of error on the Congress's part, because as she's mentioned before as well, that the Muslim League dropped the idea of Pakistan in 1946, like 1 year before partition. So if it were that inevitable, right, we would not still be having debates like a year before the supposed inevitable historic fact was about to happen. And many things have played into it. Like for example, why was the date 15th August chosen? Like it could have been anything. Why was that chosen? Because Mountbatten was a very vain, pompous individual, and he wanted the surrender of Japan in Korea, which was in 15th August, and he wanted this entire region to celebrate his victory. That's why Mountbatten did it, and he has obviously mentioned this as well. That's why it was in 15th August. So a lot of these things, conflicting egos put into this, and the inability to look beyond your political horizon, the narrow-mindedness of the leaders. And you should know that Jinnah very famously called Pakistan moth-eaten जब वो partition हो गई थी, and he was very angry because he said कि ये गरीब है और ये अपना defense नहीं कर सकेगा, and ultimately maybe the military will have to step in and do things for us, and it was of course very true. And so this narrative, right, this historical narrative, अब ये narrative बनाने की जरूरत क्यों पड़ी कि हिंदू मुसलमानों के आपस में लड़ाइयाँ हो रही थी? ये narrative हमें बनाने की जरूरत क्यों पड़ी कि जी perpetual minority में रहेंगे, etc., etc. So this narrative has been very useful to both the governments of India and Pakistan. India uses this narrative of कि Hindus जो हैं बहुत पुराने हैं, they're a pristine culture. It uses this to market itself, incredible India और वो सारी चीजें जो हैं. Pakistan uses this to think कि no we were as Muslims जो हैं we were oppressed या मुसलमान होने की वजह से जो है हमें कोई मसला था. It was very fascinating कि अगर वाकई मुसलमान होने का इतना ही प्रॉब्लम था तो the region which is now Pakistan वहाँ पे पाकिस्तान के लिए एक्टिविज्म नहीं हुआ. यहाँ पे जो है जो हुआ है पाकिस्तान that happened in the central provinces, the northern provinces of India क्योंकि प्रॉब्लम उन्हीं को था, like I said, those provinces and stuff like that. So this narrative, this entire narrative of Hindus and Muslims being separate, of being जो है dominate करना एक group को दूसरे के ऊपर, and all of these things, this narrative has proven to be very useful to the right-wing governments that populate both these states, and so inevitable, like I said, is a very funny word because it disguises all of these things. और obviously कोई चीज़ हो जाए तो उसके बाद तो वो यानी वो inevitable ही होती है, right? But historically, when we look at it, the multiple things that could have happened at any point, the multiple perspectives that existed. Like, for example, Iqbal very famously wanted a pan-Islamic entity, और उसका capital जो होता है वो तेहरान में होता है. He is not Pakistan as well, right? Or like I said, अगर हम इसी तरह की किसी narrative, if we follow Iqbal's narrative, so Pakistan is just one step towards achieving what he wanted, right? So nothing is really that set in stone, specifically when we talk about history and the thousands of actors. And as historians make this like I.H. Quraishi in Pakistan, this four master narratives he created. हुकूमतों के साथ साथ उसका narrative भी बदलता रहा. So this thing we ignore all the other things that have happened. We ignore all the other possibilities that could have happened, right? And we stick to this narrative that exists, right? So that's what gives any historical fact its inevitability. To talk about your point about Brexit and stuff like this. So once again, it was the British, not the British, rather the UK people, the United Kingdom, that very actively wanted to participate in the European Union. And then there's this entire narrative that has started that the immigrants are stealing our jobs. And it's been deliberately drummed up by the right-wing governments like UKIP and the Tories, Johnson or Theresa May and all of these things, right? It was deliberately trumped up by them to facilitate what they wanted to do, which was to privatize a whole bunch of stuff. और ये बातें करना कि जी हम इतने ज़्यादा taxes देते हैं, हम ये करते हैं, वो करते हैं to the European Union, which is a lie, of course, statistically incorrect. A very good movie was made on this as well. It's called Brexit: The Uncivil War, right? So even that's a narrative the Britishers wanted out. And even right now, they're starting to realize that, it's not entirely the best thing. So we should be very, very careful when we say stuff like this, when we make claims such as this. So to sum it up, TLDR, it wasn't inevitable, and nothing really is. Thank you.
So, if you have any questions from Afrasiyan, you can ask any questions. You want to read what
That was really nice. You did really logical and good points. I just want to ask one important thing. When we're talking about something that is bound to happen, what frame of or what type of a paradigm are you looking are you using to look at this event? Because now generally when I talk about this event or any other event that has to do with anything that was done with the states getting reunification or disintegration, I always have the perspective that because the state is basically an important actor of the international the arena. Their stance and their agenda that plays a very key role in encouraging or basically contributing to the great agenda that was to the great power agenda, like दो तीन superpowers होना, and then having the rest of the states just basically running behind your tail. So I look at these events from that perspective. So when you're talking about the Hindus or the Muslims, or let's take the example of the UK citizens not being in favor of it. How do you deem that as an important factor? Basically declaring that this would have been avoided, or this would not have been the case if the community at large or the people's interests were put in perspective. Because, like I said, the agenda or the aim of the state is basically the deciding factor in the international politics.
That's of course a very valid question. And yes, of course, states play a very some people would argue they play the only role in deciding. I would not argue that, of course, but when we specifically talk about partition, right, and when we talk about how after both the world wars, right, by 1940s the British were a spent force. They could not do literally anything about it. And this has been wherever you will find, specifically the British, I won't talk about other colonial powers, but when things have gotten out of hand for the British, they have gone with the easy route, and they have said, we will partition it and you guys deal with it later. The same thing happened with Palestine and Israel. बिल्कुल उनका भी यही है, जो Balfour Declaration थी और वो सब, all of that stuff. Because the British could not handle this thing, right? So I believe it was Ramchandra Guha, the Indian historian, who said the partition of Pakistan and India happened because of a centralization of power, and then the atrocities were because there was no power, because the British did not want anything to do with it. The British wanted to be done with this as soon as possible, and to the cabinet mission plan and stuff like this, right? Till the very end, the British wanted a unified India because for cultural reasons, because they said, look at us, we're the British, look at us, we're so good. हमने जो है देखो ये आपस में लड़ते जाहिल लोग हैं, and we have kept this country from disintegrating, and also because for strategic reasons, one country is better to handle or to control than two, right? And so the British were spent by this time. They didn't want anything to do with it. And if you notice Jinnah's speeches post 1945, he's always delaying. He's always delaying because for Jinnah, and even this is not that big of it's not that radical a claim anymore. Like for Jinnah, Pakistan was a bargaining chip to get the most benefits for the provinces. This is Aisha Jalal's thesis, very famously so. So when we talk about the state in that particular context, there was no state. The British were almost on their way out. They were done. There was massive unemployment, like the bombings, the Germans had destroyed them. London was aflame and stuff like this. और जो है गवर्नमेंट ने जो है उन्होंने कहा था कि हम ये करना चाहते हैं, we want to quit India. 1943 में quit India movement भी शुरू हो गई थी. The British were very unpopular, so they were powerless at that time. And even if they wanted, they couldn't do anything. They tried आखिर में कैबिनेट मिशन प्लान पे कि किसी ना किसी तरह जो है इसको रखा जाए, इसको बहाल किया जाए. But of course it was out of their hands by that time, and it was completely up to the League and to Congress. And because of their refusal to work with each other, and because of the Congress's idea, specifically Nehru's desire for a centralized, unified India, उसकी वजह से ये हुआ है. Like for example, very famously, लियाकत अली खान का the poor man's budget जो है, लियाकत अली खान put a lot of taxes on businesses, right? And this was unacceptable to Congress क्योंकि the Tatars and the Birlas, they funded them. उनके पैसे वहाँ से आते थे. Sarojini Naidu जो हैं बुलबुल हिंद जो हैं very famously said कि millions are spent to keep Gandhi in poverty, right? तो यानी गांधी को गरीब रखने के लिए जो है billions का खर्चा किया जाता है. So is these petty things, and ultimately you should realize that history is just a matter of petty squabbling over who gets to say what or who gets to do what, right? That is what it basically is. So when we talk about the statecraft, it was ultimately up to them, and they were not willing to collaborate with each other. और फिर जो प्रॉब्लम हुए हैं to centralize India, वो problems अब आपको अब नजर आ रहे हैं कि as long as they were like a liberal sort of well-meaning party like the Congress at the helm, right, everything was fine. ठीक है? As soon as the right wingers come into power, the BJP and stuff like this, you have incidents like the Gujarat riots, you have incidents like the Babri Masjids, right? Because powers are centralized, that you do not really care about what they think. So, in many ways, Nehru was wrong in wanting such a deeply centralized India. So, that's basically it, right? The British were done, and these people could have very easily worked it out between them, something that Jinnah wanted, which of course did not fall through for a variety of reasons. And none of them were as set in stone as perhaps we would want them to be, or perhaps the states themselves would want them to be.
Sir, if you want to add something.
Yeah, I'll just make a few pointers before. When we're talking about how things could have been, discussed, and they could have worked it out. How I see it, how we have studied it. At that time, the very cliched statement when we talk about the atrocities that were there by Hindus on Muslims. Why would I go a little bit back in history again? Is because, and I know we shouldn't be saying these things right now about our history, but it's like a fact. The precedents that was set under the Mughal Empire, what Hindus went through under the Muslim rule, and how such a dangerous precedence was set. So much hatred, so much revenge was being cultivated in that time. That hatred was actually seen very clearly during the war of independence. When the partition was actually being discussed, the hatred was seen by the actions of the Hindus. They wanted to take every last drop of revenge from the Muslims by sidelining them in every way possible. Like, again, there are so many businessmen over there. There are so many communities over there that are thriving, that are Muslims over there, and I agree with that. Nobody is denying that. But because the Hindutva ideology was actually having, it was having a breakthrough. It was in its initial stages in that age. It was gaining speed. And just for example, just imagine a state where we are still a part of India, and there is no East Pakistan. There was nothing. We are still India. Just imagine, with this age and time, with this much development, imagine where Muslims would have been, keeping in view that we were still deprived of, politically, of good representation. We were basically almost next to the Achut, like we were almost next to getting the jobs of the lower class jobs. The elite class had very few Muslims, even during the time of the partition and before that. The growing aggression against Muslims was so strong that if we were to still be a nation, we would have seen a lot of atrocities that would have mirrored something similar to what is being done in Kashmir. Okay, this is an age of information, and nothing goes unnoticed, but we can very much see what is happening over there, what is happening in Israel, Palestine with the Palestinian people, what is happening in Kashmir right now. Even in this age where the UN plays a very integral part in making sure that there are no human rights violations anywhere, and people get to say what they want, when people have a right to what they want to be done with their community, we would have been reduced to a community that is in struggle for their freedom, that is again struggling for good representation in the politics, that is struggling to have their representation, their language being presented. I agree with what you said about the Hindu language and the Urdu language being somewhat
They're exactly.
Yeah. But the fact that it was asked to be changed initially, these motives play a very huge role. why do I emphasize on a very generic perspective of what is happening is because these things later on lead to a lot of insurgency movements. We would have seen those insurgencies. We would have seen a Burhan Wani from the Muslim, from this part of India, very, sooner, later, if not sooner. We would have seen insurgency movements more dangerous to the regional peace than what we have to deal with right now. And basically when I was talking about the international system, how the states were having an agenda, the US was basically gaining the status of great power, and Britain was reduced to ashes, like you said. They just wanted to get done with everything that they had done in in these continents. Eventually they would not have let us live as a one big nation. They would never want this subcontinent to be a competition to them in the future. They wouldn't have let that stay. Even if the people of even if Indians never wanted that to happen, the US would have intervened somehow or another to break us apart. And because of the differences that exist between Hindus and Muslims, we would have again catered to their demand. We would have again fell, to the trap that they were setting for us, just like we did to the Britishers when they were there. So the partition, I know what has happened in the past. We are always going to call that inevitable. Definitely, it's a very funny word. But why I'm very strongly a believer that this disintegration would have happened is because the actions, what has happened after the partition, what was happening before the partition, they speak for themselves. And the biggest factor was how they have the Hindutva, the Hindutva mindset has ruined the secularism that was there once in India, what they were built upon. And you actually mentioned that if there is always a process of reunification, and the precedents that has been set by India after the partition, their reputation is so damaged. The dirty politics that they have done, what they have done with Muslims, with the citizen amendment bill and everything, they have ruined it for them. That even if there was a chance after 100 years of a reunification, they are still ruining it. They are still in the process of ruining all those chances because of giving heat and because of giving a platform to their Great India, the Hindutva policy. And I actually do believe that was what was the major factor and will always be a factor in preventing India from giving space to any other minority in their country.
Of course, she's raised a few points, and a lot of them are very valid, of course, but let me counter-present my argument here. So, the first thing as to the role of the United States, right? Whatever could have happened is conjecture. We should not deal in conjecture. We should not make cookbooks for the future, right? We should stick to what has happened. That is, I think, a proper, no offense, of course, right? But that is the proper historical role, is to stick to what has happened, right? Number one. Number two, you mentioned that the Mughals after Aurangzeb and how the Hindus were very poorly treated and stuff like this, but you also forget Akbar and his attempts at Din-e-Ilahi, Sulh-e-Kul, right? And it is very fascinating. I also found this out very recently, that in the West, ये जो Hindu mysticism और ये yoga और ये सब जो है, ये पहला इसी वजह से था. Schopenhauer, the German philosopher, he read a translation of a text by Dara Shikoh, the prince, Aurangzeb's brother. He actually read this, a Muslim prince जो है, who translated the Upanishads, and then the Upanishads went to the West and stuff, and that's how they found out about it, right? So it's not just कि यानी हिंदुओं ने मुसलमानों पे जुल्म किया या मुसलमानों ने हिंदुओं पे जुल्म किया, ये ज़रा ये victim वाला भी जो है, this needs to be unpacked as well, because we have to understand, did these communities understand themselves as Hindus and Muslims? क्योंकि जब वो कहा जा रहा था वो ये नहीं कि मुसलमान कर रहे हैं, वो मुगल कर रहे हैं, बिकॉज इन हैदराबाद जो है द निज़ाम्स एग्जिस्टेड सेपरेटली टुवर्ड्स द वेस्ट यू हैड इन बलोचिस्तान you had their own princely states and stuff like choti around 500 or so I believe, right? So it was not that the Muslims were doing it, it was that the Mughals were doing it. And ये historic understanding कि हम कहते हैं कि ये हिंदू मुस्लिम का मसला था, actually the problem was between these various ethnicities, यानी if there was a problem, we should be qualifying this, right? कि वो जो हैं how did they understand themselves? So they understood themselves as Turks, they understood themselves as Afghans, right? They did not call themselves Muslim, not at all. और ना ही जो है इनमें से किसी ने भी, ये जो मुस्लिम रूलर्स हैं इनमें से किसी ने भी शरीयत नाफिज करने की बिफोर औरंगजेब जो है nobody even attempted this, right? So it is not just कि the Hindus were seeping with retaliation कि हमारे साथ जुल्म हुआ हमने भी बदला लेना है, stuff like this, right? And even if that were true, the point is if this were effectively controlled, if better security, for lack of a better word, was provided, right, would any of this have happened? And she has very rightfully so highlighted the atrocities that the Muslims committed, right? लेकिन डायरेक्ट एक्शन डे पे मुस्लिम लीग के कहने पे कलकत्ता और यानी बंगाल में जो तबाही मुसलमानों ने मचाई थी कि यानी सूडो मार्शल लॉ जो है लगाना पड़ गया था बिकॉज ऑफ डायरेक्ट एक्शन डे, एंड इट हैपेंड बिकॉज द मुस्लिम लीग कि जो बंगाल में जो उनकी फॉलोअर्स थे they were mostly thugs and gangsters and stuff like this, so but the Muslim League did, right? We have to keep that in mind as well कि यानी whatever atrocity we need, that needs to be contextualized as well, right? Baki रह गया when she mentions that the insurgencies would have happened or could have happened. So remember this, one of the why Jinnah was so against partitioning Punjab and Bengal, and we should remember कि actually जो partition हुई है ये पंजाब और बंगाल की हुई है. The majority of India has remained unaffected, right? It was Punjab and Bengal that were partitioned. Or why Jinnah was so against it, because he said कि if in Bengal and in Punjab, if we get a sizable non-Muslim population, that will keep whatever यानी जज्बात जो हैं जो हिंदुओं के, that will keep them in check as well. कि we have sort of these hostages, and this is not something that I am making up. This was stuff that was actively discussed amongst you can find it in references to Raja of Mahmudabad's diary, very fascinating read. Chaudhry Khaliquzzaman also wrote stuff like this in Pathway to Pakistan. So this was done. ये जो demand थी कि अगर होना भी है तो we want this full thing, which was done to keep these in check, right? So whatever insurgencies and like I said have happened is because of India's failure to democratize, right? Because of this centralization की जो बात कांग्रेस ने रखी है कि independence first and we will deal with stuff later, right? ये मसला जो है and it is because of this, because of India's failure to democratize properly, right? और ये Yasir Latif Hamdani lives in Islamabad as well. He's one of the foremost experts on Jinnah. He very clearly mentioned, he said that it was a strategic error on Jinnah's part to focus on Muslims. He should have focused on all minorities, right? That would have been much more effective. Or Baki रह गई Kashmir and stuff like this. So Liaquat Ali Khan very famously said Nehru was willing to give up Kashmir in exchange for Hyderabad, and Liaquat Ali Khan ने बहुत famously कहा था कि मैं कश्मीर के पत्थरों के लिए मैं हैदराबाद छोड़ दूँ, right? तो अब उन कश्मीर के पत्थर जो हैं वो अब आपकी सर पे पड़ रहे हैं, right? So once again, right, even stuff like this, in within these you can find this potential of so many things, right? और बाकी रह गया कि like she mentioned कि क्या reunification कुछ हो सकती है. I will not conjecture on any such thing कि क्या ये हो सकती है, होनी चाहिए. I'm not going to say that, right? But we should also remember that there was a very popular socialist movement as well. जिसके leaders Bhagat Singh, Chandrasekhar Azad, Bismil जो हैं सरफरोशी की तमन्ना, very famously written by him, right? And these guys wanted and they used the word, they wanted a अखंड socialist भारत कि इस गन से ही निकला जाए. ठीक है ये हिंदू मुस्लिम और सबके, बिकॉज फॉर दिस नैरेटिव जो है इवन इफ यू आर इंडिपेंडेंट यू आर स्टिल स्लेव्स to whatever landowner, whatever capitalist जो है, जो कि is true as well. You can very clearly see the sheer amount of poverty that is concentrated in India and Pakistan, right? So ये अखंड socialist भारत वाला जो narrative है ये तो बिल्कुल ही दब जाता है कहीं in this big major one कि हिंदू मुसलमान लड़ना चाह रहे, right? So why would Bhagat Singh, a Sikh, right, want an अखंड socialist भारत अगर वाकई इतना ही मसला था? And why would his group include a Muslim and a Hindu? Chandrasekhar Azad की जो है very famous उसकी picture है, you can see the Janayu thread across his chest, तो वो that is a symbol of Brahmins, right? तो एक Brahmin जो है मुसलमानों के साथ सिखों के साथ जो है वो socialist हिंदुस्तान की बात कर रहा है, so where did this come from then, right? So all this distinction, all these ideas, what could have been, right? We should not get into that. We should stick to what the actual historical facts that are available to us. और उसमें ये है कि regardless of what has happened or regardless of what will happen, rather, when it was happening, there were multiple strands around it, and any one of them could have come to fruition. And so whatever plan we like to call partition and stuff like this, Pakistan, whatever, right? There's a book by Ambedkar, Bala Sahib Ambedkar. I was called Pakistan or the Partition of India, and उसकी line मुझे बहुत हंसी लगती है. उसने कहा कि पाकिस्तान का मसला ये है कि if you have a headache, so you cut your head open, right? कि आपके सर में दर्द हो रहा है तो आप अपनी खोपड़ी खोल दो, ठीक? तो ऑफ कोर्स यानी अब तो खुल गई है, बट लाइक देयर वर चांसेस कि ये शायद ना खुलती, एंड देयर वर स्टफ दैट कुड हैव हैपेंड दैट वेरी इजीली प्रिवेंटेबल, इवन द एट्रोसिटीज वर प्रिवेंटेबल, राइट? सो
Thank you both of you for this insightful discussion. जो हिस्ट्री है इंडिया के अंदर वो ब्रिटिश के आने से पहले हमें कोई कम्युनल वायलेंस का कोई इवेंट्स हमें मिलते नहीं, इंसिडेंट्स नहीं मिलते, और एक है हमारे पाकिस्तानी एक इंटरनेशनल रिलेशंस के एक्सपर्ट और एक बड़े सोशल साइंटिस्ट इकबाल अहमद, इतने ज़्यादा लोग उनको शायद जानते नहीं हैं, तो इकबाल अहमद कहते हैं कि तकरीबन 700 साल तक हिंदू और मुसलमान रहे इकट्ठे, और इट वाज सच अ हैप्पी मैरिज इन अ वे कि उसके नतीजे में एक नई जुबान ने जन्म लिया जो कि हमें उस दैट वाज अनप्रेसिडेंटेड, वो हमें नज़र नहीं आता है। लेकिन आज आप सोशल मीडिया के ऊपर देखें, टेलीविज़न चैनल्स पे देखें, रात गोस्वामी टाइप के उधर भी और ज़ाहिर है यहाँ पे भी हैं, तो वो वॉर हिस्टेरिया, एक ग्लोरिफिकेशन ऑफ वॉर, तो मेरे ख्याल में ये भी सोचने की ज़रूरत है कि जंग तो बजाते खुद एक मसला है, तो वो किसी मसले का हल कैसे हो सकता है जंग, और ये हमारी जो यूथ है ख़ास तौर पे वो मतलब कि अब ज़ाहिर 23 मार्च की एक वो सेलिब्रेशंस भी होने लगी हैं, तो जंग बहुत ज़्यादा नैरेटिव आपको देखने को मिलेगा सोशल मीडिया पे ख़ास तौर पे, तो मेरे ख्याल में दिस इज़ वेरी डिस्टर्बिंग, दिस इज़ वेरी अनफॉर्चुनेट कि जो लोग आज से 700 साल पहले अगर इकट्ठे रहने का उनकी कोई तरतीब बन सकती थी, तो विद ऑल दिस एजुकेशन एंड ऑल दिस इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर एंड टेक्नोलॉजी एंड ऑल ऑफ दिस, why cannot they stay as peaceful neighbors, coexist क्यों नहीं कर सकते हैं? So I will just now open and thank you so much again for this wonderful this एक और चीज़ मैं बात करना चाह रहा था कांग्रेस के हवाले से कि डॉक्टर अम्बेडकर भी एक दफ़ा कहते हैं कि उन्होंने ये दलित क्वेश्चन भी उठाया था बापू के आगे, मतलब गांधी के आगे ये क्वेश्चन भी उठाया था कि व्हाट अबाउट दलित्स, so Gandhi's response was and Nehru's response was कि let's first throw British Raj out of India and then हम इसको discuss कर लेंगे।
Actually, he started a hunger strike जो है at the round tables. तो when जब दलित representation की बात आई थी तो Gandhi was opposed to it. वो कह रहा था कि दिस इज फर्दर फ्रैक्चरिंग द
Right.
तो उसने इसके खिलाफ हंगर स्ट्राइक की थी फॉर लाइक 30 days.
एग्जैक्टली तो बस मैं तो यही कहूँगा इससे पहले आई जस्ट ओपन द फ्लो फॉर क्वेश्चंस. वो मेरे ख्याल में शायद लुधियानवी का एक शेर है कि वो टैंक आगे बढ़े या पीछे हटे, कोक धरती की बांझ होती है. So the floor is open for questions and answers. You can directly ask the speakers, Sahar and Afras, क्या और प्लीज इसके बाद हमारा एक वो यहाँ पे रिफ्रेशमेंट का चाय का बंदोबस्त है, तो वहाँ पे हम डिटेल में डिस्कशन करेंगे. So my request from you is to keep it very precise and brief. तो comments को आप बात के लिए छोड़ दीजिए और questions इनसे प्लीज पूछ लीजिए. Thank you so much. So if we have any questions, please. Do we need to have a mic for your husband?
अच्छा, दो चीज़ें हैं. पहली चीज़ ये है कि आखिरी बात है आपने की कि व्हाट इज फ्रेंड, तो फिर मकसद क्या है इस बात की बात करने का. वी लर्न फ्रॉम हिस्ट्री दैट इज मोर ऑफ अ मोर ऑफ अ कमेंट, नॉट द क्वेश्चन. प्लीज वी लर्न फ्रॉम हिस्ट्री, वी शुड लर्न फ्रॉम हिस्ट्री. इस पे थोड़ी सी कुछ डिस्कशन में एक शेर मुझे याद आ गया कि तेरा मेरा वास्ता होता बराह रास्त, ये इश्क दरमियान होता क्या बात. इंडिया पाकिस्तान बनना ना बनना इंडिविजुअल था नहीं था, जो भी था, could have lived like good neighbors. जो भगत सिंह और ये जो लोग बात करते हैं, जो एक बीच में एक बात थोड़ी सी वो भी है कि अमेरिका एंड ऑल दैट, कि दुनिया वर्ल्ड वॉर के बाद सारी ऑलमोस्ट ऑल इन चैम्बर्स. इंडिया पाकिस्तान साउथ एशिया इसको सोने की चिड़िया कहा जाता है, राइट. तो ऑफ कोर्स देयर वाज समथिंग यार, ये इतने बड़े लोग और नॉट ओनली नेचुरल रिसोर्सेज बट ह्यूमन रिसोर्सेज एज वेल, एक अरब प्लस समथिंग लाइक चाइना. बाकी तो ये है कि इस चीज़ को प्ले किया गया है. इंडिया में ये सब 195 मिलियन मुस्लिम्स क्या है, हमने मगर सिर्फ क्या किया, सो मेनी क्वेश्चंस, बहुत सारी चीज़ें हैं. तो कुल मिलाकर बात मैं शॉर्ट करता हूँ इसको, बिकॉज ऑलरेडी लाइक यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका, मैं दोनों तरफ ऑन बोथ साइड्स, ठीक है. could have lived like a more independent to the provinces of different, like जो जिनके बाद सेवन सिस्टर स्टेट्स की बात आप कर रही थी, वो जो है उसको रेड कॉरिडोर भी कहा जाता है. जो इंडस्ट्री मूवमेंट्स हैं पाकिस्तान में, बलूचिस्तान, बांग्लादेश, मैं उनकी बात करता हूँ कि विद अ रूल्स सेंट्रल कंट्रोल वी कुड लिव टुगेदर. और इवन लाइक यूरोप वी कुड लिव लाइक ओके पाकिस्तान, हैदराबाद दक्कन, या इट्स द रिचेस्ट स्टेट, हैदराबाद दक्कन, बांग्लादेश, यू नो अगेन सिख, राइट. अगर उसको नेशनलिस्ट पे ले जाए तो पंजाबी, बिकॉज मेरे अपने जो फोर फादर हैं फिरोज को, और बिफोर पार्टीशन दे माइग्रेटेड एक्चुअली, और आई रियली वांट टू विजिट दैट एरिया. एवरीबॉडी डज. मेरी मोटी सी मतलब दरमियानी बात मैंने कर दी है कि एदर पार्टीशन और नॉट कुड लिव लाइक गुड नेबर. कश्मीर, अच्छा लड़ने की जो बात जो आपकी पहली बात में दोबारा आता हूँ, वी लर्न फ्रॉम हिस्ट्री इज के दोनों मुल्कों में हालात खराब हैं. एक आम आदमी जो है बेचारा दोनों मुल्कों में पिस रहा है. Although I would say, this is my opinion based on the fact that India is moving better towards economy. हमारे देश मार्ग पे मिसाइल होंगे और उनके देश मार्ग पे बायोटेक लैब का मैंने कल से देख रहा था, ठीक है. तो कश्मीर का इशू है, कोई और इशूज हैं, सॉल्व इट ऑन द टेबल. जंग के बाद भी आप टेबल पे आते हैं, यू नो, इन एनी केस आफ्टर वॉर इतनी वॉर्स हुई है उसके बाद आप टेबल पर आगे बैठते हैं, तो पहले बैठते हैं और लेट्स लिव लाइक गुड नेबर.
So, do we have any other question from like participants, please?
Hi, I'm Gurjit, Student of International Relations. I have a question from Ramsar. You said that the partition was bound to happen because of the ruthless behavior of the Hindus towards the Muslims. And you related to the practice of the BJP towards the minorities in India. So the same is happening in Pakistan. We can see that according to Human Rights Commission, 20 girls in a day are abducted and converted into some other religion. Insane. So the same is happening in Pakistan as well. We can see insurgencies in Balochistan and the other provinces with the Dural Line conflict of KPK. So what the reason that you gave for the partition to be bound to happen, so it makes the partition of Pakistan as well to be bound to happen. So can you give some other reason for which the partition was bound to happen to make it more like solid? Some other reason instead of the truth.
Okay, first I'll briefly address what you have raised. The partition of a country that is already, uh, we, we as in the academics, nobody ever denies anything that is happening factually. We know what is happening in here. We know what is happening at that across the border. We know the entities that exist that make the they that create a lot of social issues in the countries. But then also, not a cliched statement again, but keep in mind that social issues will always exist everywhere. There are radicals everywhere. There are people, there are communities that would not let women, that would not let minorities rest peacefully. But if we are talking in terms of the percentage of the atrocities that were happening at that time, when the Muslims were actually at the mercy of the Hindus because they were in large population, that is a ratio we cannot compare. We cannot compare that. We cannot compare the atrocities that or the issues that are the minorities are facing right now with the minorities, the Muslims, and the other minorities that were facing in Great India, what they used to call it. Another, a very solid example that I've just spoken about a little while ago was the slow and gradual, we were phasing towards an era where one entity was going to have a greater power with respect to the evolution in politics, with respect to the evolution in warfare, with respect to the evolution of international relations. So consider this that let's take India as a whole towards 2000. Again, he'll be like I'm talking in the future again, but I mostly see the international relations from the perspective of sometimes a realist, sometimes a rationalist. Yeah, so like you have to take into account these things when the states were actually gradually going towards an era where there was going to be one power governing supposedly the subcontinent, we not saying that I'm not making a very sweeping statement. We know the power that Hindus had. We knew the inclination that the basically the inclination that Hindus had towards what type of a political environment they wanted to have. We know where Muslims would have been, where Muslims were even then. Why such a small, a request of Qaeda Azam was not being catered to at that time, which could have avoided, if there were loose strands, one of the strand was that, and they did not listen to to him. This entire fiasco could have been avoided if Qaeda Azam was, his demands were catered to. Why? Because they did not want Muslims to thrive in any way. They did not want Muslims to have that type of a power where they can later on maybe ask for more rights. Politically उनको strong करना तो चाहते ही नहीं थे ना. वो एक sweeping statement वाली चीज नहीं है. वो एक काफी you speak to people who were from that era. If anyone has any relatives who were from that that time frame, they would actually narrate those stories. And I'm talking about problems from both the ends. Both were at each other's throats. So taking that, dragging it to right now in this era where we know how just a small miscalculation can lead to a huge war. वो nuclear ticking time bomb जो कश्मीर जो बना हुआ है. It's like a very childish thing to expect that Muslims and Hindus would have been good neighbors after what they have done to each other in the past. The nation, we are people, वो खून गर्म वाली चीज होती है, हम फिर नहीं भूलते. We have that thing in our mind, we remember it, and we somewhere somehow we try to take that revenge as a community. And always remember when you're talking about these events taking place and America doing this and UK doing this. UK did this because they did not want Pakistan and India to be there. So that is the entire point. This would have happened because UK, because the other great states, they did not want the great India to exist. This would have happened because politically, in international aspect, उनके लिए वो सर्वाइवल ऑफ द फिटेस्ट जो चीज़ है, जो हॉब्स जिसके बारे में बोल रहा होता है हर वक्त, बोल रहा होता था अपने चीज़ों में कि लाइक the way he used to talk about this, the survival of the fittest, they would not have let this subcontinent survive. They would have caused a lot of issues for us to be a great nation, because nobody wants Sone ki Chudiya to be in the competition when there are so many possibilities for them to break us apart. And if we were that of a close nation, they would not have thrived on our weaknesses to break us apart in the first place. If we were that great of a nation together, a war of independence would not have happened. If we were that great of a nation, we would have listened to Qaid-e-Azam, they would have listened to Qaid-e-Azam's terms and conditions, and would have been done with, thrown out the British, the Britishers, and lived together as a grand state.
Can I say this? Yeah.
Rajab,
Yeah.
we are already like.
Okay, I just want to mention one thing, just very quick, right? So, as to relatives who have seen partition, my grandfather was part of the Khudai Khidmat Guards, the red shirts with Bacha Khan, right? And they were Muslims, they were Pashtuns, and they were allied with the Congress. That's it. That's all. That's it.
Yeah, I'm from a family that was there with Bacha Khan as well. Yeah.
Nice. Nice.
I'm very